One person under the same culture, a sincere gentleman who gains treasures is blessed with boundless longevity. Traveling into a world under one person, Liuqing knew he had little fortune and was unwilling to take the lead. The 8 wonderful techniques are the techniques of taking chaos, and they are not fortunate enough to be absorbed. He is not interested in the truth about the Jia Shen Rebellion. What he is seeking is only 5 blessings upon his doorstep. My name is Liuqing, my dream has come true. P.S. Divine Mask, Donfa, Journey to the West. Original intention keywords of the novel. Under one person, 5 blessings at the door. No pop-ups. Under one person, 5 blessings at the door. Complete collection download. Under one person, 5 blessings at the door. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Actor Liuqing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Actor Liuqing. 49 cities, on the west side of Tiananmen Street, is a dilapidated small theater. Under this stage, there are all kinds of tables, chairs, and benches, but unfortunately, there are not many people sitting, and it is very spacious. On the stage, a strangely dressed young man was babbling and singing there, without any accompaniment of single-string drums or gongs, just a clear singing. If I had to say that this young man singing 2 times was really crisp and neat, and didn't waste the good voice he had since childhood, it's a pity that he was born in the wrong era. If it were during the Republic of China era, he might have become a character, at least he would have been sought after by tens of thousands of people. Unfortunately, there aren't many people listening to the play now. When it comes to these 4 or 9 cities, it's currently a severe winter, and the snow floating in the sky can crush the trees on the roadside. People walking on the road need to think more to avoid losing the heat, but this corner seems unaware. Still babbling and singing there. Even if there is 1,000 heads hanging above, natural and casual travel in the world, dragon dance, the sea is raging and chaotic, the demonic path in the desolate place. Now before my eyes. Liuqing, a native of the 49 cities, grew up in this theater since childhood. His parents left early, and he grew up with his grandfather. His family has been singing opera since the generation of the grandfather. Liuqing didn't disappoint either. He was born with a good voice and was adept at using any music. His appearance was also good, and he was so happy that his grandfather would show off when he met people, saying that he had a good grandson, and that the skills passed down from his ancestors would not be lost. Unfortunately, a few years ago, his grandfather also left him and went to find his parents, leaving him alone, guarding this theater. Watching it gradually decline, even though he felt a bit uncomfortable in his heart, he had nothing to do. After all, times are changing. In fact, he could have sold this small theater for $2 and gone out for a leisurely lifestyle. The housing prices on the west side of Tiananmen Street are higher than a year ago, and a small house of 100 square meters can be sold for 10 to 20 million yuan. With the status of this small courtyard, it is not uncommon to have 1 or 2 small goals. However, Mr. Li still left him with a lot of family background, although not to mention wealth, at least he had no worries about food and clothing. Liuqing really couldn't bear to sell this theater. However, Liuqing actually has a secret. He is actually a traveler. In his previous life, he witnessed 2 roommates being electrocuted and turned into coke. His heart was frightened, which also affected his heart disease. As a result, he died and opened his eyes again, becoming a babbling baby. I thought this was just an ordinary world, but when I was 5 years old, my grandfather suddenly called him into his room and showed him a performance of the Divine Noah opera, which directly bombarded Liuqing's fragile worldview. And as he watched a photo on TV of a leader visiting Longhu Mountain to inspect with Zhang Jiwei, the 65th generation heavenly master and a person from the heavenly passage, Liuqing finally realized that he seemed to have entered the world of a comic book he had read in his previous life, under one person. And his grandfather is an advocate, also known as Wu Noa, a type of witchcraft that can communicate directly with the gods through singing and dancing, and use his own life to portray the gods. To act until one believes in oneself, to act as one's own god, and to transform oneself into a god, one can borrow the power of God. Moreover, the elites also use an unknown means to steal people's worship power, thereby generating some kind of power derived from faith. The consciousness based on legendary characters or deities generated on this basis is called the divine figure. Unfortunately, this method was not passed down from his ancestors, but Liuqing knew that there were still people in this world who knew this method. What kind of divine mask, divine armament, is based on divine beings? However, Liuqing never thought about going through this muddy water. Just kidding, these things involve either the company or the whole company. Putting him in, like a small shrimp, wouldn't even make a splash. Isn't this a self-destructive path? Moreover, he didn't know the specific time of the plot when he came. However, a few days ago, in a small inn in the 49 cities Jianghu, he suddenly heard someone mention that Zhang Xilin was chased by a group of skilled fighters and eventually died exhausted. He only roughly estimated some time now. He is 18 years old this year, and there are still a full 10 years until he knows the beginning of the plot. This gave him a little peace of mind. He didn't have any other plans, he just wanted to rely on the advantage of the prophet to protect himself. He has been obedient and diligent in practicing the techniques passed down by *** for over a decade, but he is still decent, even though he is not a star or a half away from the portrayal of gods he saw in comics in his previous life. But Liuqing is really satisfied. Compared to the vast majority of ordinary people in the world who cannot even experience qi, he can already be considered to have a profound fortune. What else can he expect? Liuqing's homework for today is still ongoing. Zhongxing forges the heart of Dan, the crowd shines with red bile. Even the water and mountains are dangerous, the road is blocked and difficult to navigate. Personify the audience and portray the gods in the play, each has its own divine powers. Snow and rain startle the wind and thunder, cover the sea, move the mountains, okay. The lively cheers were particularly prominent in this empty little garden. Liuqing was taken aback. Although he doesn't lock the yard door when he does his homework, he hasn't had anyone come to listen to the play for years. Perhaps it's the old men from a few years ago. Liuqing followed the sound and saw a hunched old man sitting in the northeast corner of the small theater. The old man had white beard and hair, and was dressed in a wrinkled white shirt, a simple black shorts, a pair of old BJ cloth shoes, and a yellow-green duckbill hat, which was out of place in this cold winter season. The most alarming thing about this old man is that his eyes are extremely deep, and he doesn't know if they are cloudy. He can't see any light, and even at first glance, they look like two black holes. Kid, the singing is smooth and the voice is clear. This section of Weihushen is sung well, with good lyrics. My old man likes to listen to it. The shirt old man chuckled and slowly stood up, his mouth not idle. With good physique, the two steps on stage are really handsome. If you put it aside for decades, it would definitely be a corner. Sir, you lift it up. Liuqing arched his hand and smiled, but the kid knows he's a little bit thin and still very delicate. It's still a long time before he even becomes a corner. Ha ha ha, the old man laughed heartily. You don't have to underestimate yourself, kid. You have a calm and steady physique, and you're not an ordinary person. Liuqing's eyes flickered slightly, and he was touched by someone. He was not angry and arched his hand again, saying, Li family in the pear garden, Liuqing. Have you met this master before? Sorry for your clumsiness, but have you not consulted yet? Xia Liuqing. The old man, on the other hand, was also a cheerful person, openly saying his name. It turned out that it was the senior ferocious actor in front of him. The young man showed disrespect, offended. Liuqing was shocked and said to himself that it was this old guy, and he couldn't help but feel familiar with his eyes. Xia Liuqing, a renowned figure of all genders, was an active veteran figure who started decades ago. It is said that she was also popular back then and somehow joined all genders, making her a notorious figure. And when it comes to Cao Cao, one of the few people in the world who master the divine mask is the old guy in front of them. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The Fierce Ling Xiao Liuqing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The Fierce Ling Xiao Liuqing. Kid, do you recognize me as an old man? Xiao Liuqing squinted her eyes and grinned, her face wrinkled like chrysanthemums in full bloom. After all, I am a senior in the industry, and I have heard my elders talk about your old name. Chengzhen stood up straight. You know my name. Xiao Liuqing paused and the conversation changed. Kid, are you not afraid of me? I don't know the old man at all, and our family has been kind to people for generations. As the saying goes, we don't do anything wrong in our daily lives and don't fear ghosts knocking at the door in the middle of the night. Chengzhen shook his head slowly. Besides, didn't you just appreciate me, young man? You always come here with pleasure. If you make unfounded speculations, wouldn't it be unfair for you? Ha ha ha, good kid, you have guts. Xiao Liuqing gave a thumbs up and smiled, her wrinkles squeezing even tighter. If the old man is not mistaken, your kid's trick is to act like a god. Your wise eyes are like a torch. I admire you, Chengzhen said with a chill in his heart, but his face didn't show much expression. He only did some homework and didn't even mobilize his energy, but this old personality can recognize his methods through various concealments. Even ordinary people in the martial arts world don't have such skills, but they need to have solid experience. As the saying goes, old things become strange, old people become refined, and the ancients never deceived me. Kid, don't panic either. I don't have any intentions towards you. Xiao Liuqing seemed to see through what the kid was thinking. The old man doesn't have such deep moral knowledge. He can see through your methods because we all come from the same field. He has been practicing this method for a lifetime, and he has a clear vision of nature. The boy is being taught. Chengzhen felt a bit embarrassed as he could see through his thoughts. Kid, do you still have a taboo passed down from your ancestors? Xiao Liuqing asked again. There is no such thing as a famous figure among the ancestors of the young man's family, only a high ancestor who was also considered a corner in the Republic of China. He was called Li Shoshan, also known as Zhonghua, and was known as de Li Qi in the circle. There was also a period of glory in these 4 or 9 cities back then. Chengzhen reached out and lifted his hand around. This cluster of small gardens was passed down from this old ancestor. No wonder. Xiao Liuqing pondered for a moment and looked at Chengzhen. Kid, you are a hard-working person. You have a solid foundation, but unfortunately, you are not practicing the true magic. In the eyes of truly knowledgeable people, there are many flaws. Chengzhen's heart was filled with a murmur. He had indeed felt that his practice of acting in the divine Noah opera was different from what he had seen in his previous life. He couldn't even perform anything such as the great sage of Qi Tian or the sage of Erlang. If he wanted to act forcefully, his mind would feel like he wanted to explode. In the end, he could only play the role of a city godlord, and he couldn't bring out the essence. He had always thought that his talent was not high and he didn't have this lucky spot. Now, when he heard Xiao Liuqing say that he wasn't practicing true magic, he immediately believed most of it in his heart. The boy is dull, please ask the old man for guidance. Chengzhen bowed deeply to Xiao Liuqing. You're actually honest, kid. You didn't play tricks on the old man. Xiao Liuqing smiled. Kid, come down and change your costume. Don't break the rules. Chengzhen nodded and walked down the stairs next to him. He changed into his costume, took off his makeup, and took good care of himself carefully. Only then did he wear his usual clothes and walk out. Come, kid, come over. Xiao Liuqing greeted Chengzhen. Chengzhen nodded and stood in front of Xiao Liuqing, following the rules of singing opera. He respected his seniors. You're clever enough, you should be able to see it, Xiao Liuqing said with a smile. My old man doesn't care about you and wants to pass on your tricks, but I have a lot of trouble with you. If you get a little bit of it, it won't be a hassle. But the rules can't be bad, and the old man won't make things difficult for you. He's here today. You bring half a cup of tea to the old man, kowtow his head, and pass on this trick. Oh. This old man Xia is a kind person. Liuqing thought to himself, offering half a cup of tea and kowtowing his head means only passing on the means and not accepting apprentices. Liuqing also only accepts emotions and does not accept causality. If someone else were to come knocking on the door and offer such generous conditions, Liuqing would definitely agree and then consider waiting for an opportunity to escape. But this statement, spoken by Xia Liuqing, is quite credible. When Liuqing read the original work in his previous life, he felt that Xia Lao too was a person of personal integrity, hidden and calculating, but very dedicated, with self-awareness and the courage to act. As a holistic elder, he is not really a bad person, at most he can be considered a murderer. Although he once said that more than 90 innocent people died because of him, dying because of him does not necessarily mean that he did it. Besides, this old man Xia has no grudges or grievances against him. If we really want to touch this little comrade with no background, Xia Liuqing doesn't even need to say a word of nonsense. It would be kind to make him understand completely. Thinking of this level, Liuqing didn't hesitate at all. He gave Xia Liuqing a proper nod and stood up to fetch a teapot. He imparted half a cup of tea without bias, and presented it as a gift. Ha ha ha, you're such a refreshing kid. Xia Liuqing looked in a good mood as she lifted half a cup of tea and drank it all in one gulp, with a smile on her face that couldn't be hidden. Don't worry, kid, you can't knock your head for nothing. Let me ask you, who is playing this God in your heart? Of course, I will play it. Liuqing felt a bit confused. First, play its form, then its spirit, using me as the carrier to subdue the spirit in the world. Take a look, Xia Liuqing shook her head, smashing her mouth and mouth. Difficulties are difficult, and the way is the most profound. Don't take the golden elixir for granted. Don't let anyone pass on the magical method. Empty words can make your tongue dry, kid. Stay focused. Before Liuqing could react, Xia Liuqing suddenly burst into a frenzy, so fast that Liuqing couldn't see clearly. He had to subconsciously think of Xia Liuqing's words and stabilize his mind in an instant. The next moment, Xia Liuqing imprinted her palm on the position of his large acupoint in the middle of his body. At this moment, Liuqing's breathing was almost stopped. In an instant, a spiritual body floated out of his head, wearing an official hat and robe, which perfectly matched the image of the city god. Unfortunately, it was lifeless and lacked support. At the sight of the sun, it turned into flying ash. Liuqing suddenly spat out a stream of dirty blood and landed on the nearby green brick, instantly emitting a corrosive hissing sound. Son of a bitch, with this slap, your hard work over the past decade has instantly cost me half. Do you have any complaints? Xia Liuqing asked with a smile. Old man, don't tease the boy anymore. Liuqing took a sigh of relief and let out a bitter smile. With this palm of your hand, it has dispelled the redundancy for me. The circulation of my energy has become sharp and even my body has become lighter. I thank you for not having enough time. Why do you have any complaints? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. True story, one sentence. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, True story, one sentence. Good kid, you have vision. Xia Liuqing sat down again with a smile in her eyes. Your previous methods of practicing qi were all amateurs, naturally giving rise to a lot of redundancy. Don't worry about the front, the more you go to the back, the more you regret it. The old man's lesson is, Liuqing agreed. Kid, when I asked you earlier who played the role of a god, it wasn't aimless. Xia Liuqing paused. You said you played this god yourself. I asked you, can people play gods? Since you've been asking like this, it's natural that you can't act, said Liuqing, feeling a bit confused. He has been practicing this method for over a decade, but he never thought it would be right. You're a little clever, kid. Xia Liuqing's two eyes narrowed into a slit. I tell you, kid, people can't play gods, only gods can play gods. There are two gods in the human body, one is your primordial god, which is your three souls, belonging to the soul, and the other is your consciousness spirit, which is your seven souls. You can naturally play gods through ordinary methods, but you can only play their forms, not their gods, and cannot cultivate to the level of high skills. You can only learn some superficial skills. Old man, what does it look like to cultivate excellence to a deeper level like us? Liuqing was a bit curious. Humph, I knew you would ask that. You young people are ambitious and only know how to talk about life skills every day. Although the saying life is passed down by teachers, nature is self-realized, in the South has its own reason, sex skills cannot be passed down in the first place and require enlightenment. But with your posture, you only talk about fate and not about sex every day. When others say about personality skills, they say they are not practicing. Can you become a ghost by yourself? How many misfortunes can you overcome on the path of cultivation? The body is the capital. If you don't bring tea or water until now, and have a foundation of 10 or 8 years, how can you learn real martial arts? Xia Liuqing lifted the tea cup, and Chengzhen immediately understood and obediently added another cup of tea. But if you ask like this, I'll tell you, old man. Xia Liuqing nodded. These methods of portraying gods are indeed the first stage of advocating excellence. To borrow divine power, and further up, it is necessary to steal people's faith in gods and reach the stage of subduing gods. It is a bit like the divine strike technique of the southern Shangqing sect, calling it the technique of subduing divine power. However, to reach this stage, some things need to be prepared. I just tried your child's energy, and your family won't even pass on the means of preparing for things, right? Chengzhen smiled awkwardly, which made it impossible for him to take over. But it doesn't matter, Xia Liuqing didn't continue to tease Chengzhen. It's good if it hasn't been passed down, so you can rest assured and lay the foundation. Anyway, there are also old men who have passed on this method to you now. After you cross this stage, you will reach the highest third stage. If the first stage is to perform the god, and the second stage is to subdue the god, then, by the third stage, you will be the god. Am I God? Chengzhen murmured to himself, carefully pondering the meaning behind it. That's right, Xia Liuqing smiled. To borrow a sentence from Mr. Mei Lanfang, the moment you put your face on the mask, you blend in with the character. At this moment, you are both Mei Lanfang and Yang Guifei. You will be anxious about Mei Lanfang's anxieties and think about Yang Guifei's thoughts. You are the perfect unity of your personality and artistic characteristics, and you are the divine. Now Chengzhen completely understood. In his understanding, advocating excellence was originally stealing the faith of the gods as their power, but now listening to Xia Liuqing's description, what is this stealing faith? This is clearly stealing the divine position and replacing it. So only by carrying the position of gods with gods can people reach such a level. There are many gods that can be praised and performed, but the most fundamental ones are only two. Xia Liuqing offered the door god Wei Qi Jingde and the second prince Yang Jian. This old man's talent is definitely not in the first tier. As he said, the power to advocate for excellence should be determined by the number of beliefs of that deity, not by their size. Although the two deities he plays have rich beliefs, they definitely do not belong to the first tier. On the contrary, it is Wang Jinxiu, the Southwest Cancer, behind him, who plays two characters. Sun Wukong, the great sage of Qi Tian, and Neza, the great god of the three altars of the sea. Judging from the recent adaptations of movies and TV shows in mainland China, it can be seen how strong their popularity is. Truly fulfilling that old saying, passing on a true sentence and falsely passing on 10,000 books, this old man Xia's words directly enlightened him. The parts that he couldn't understand in the past suddenly became clear now. Even Chengzhen seemed to have some different new ideas in his heart. Over the years, he had also read many classics in order to achieve the state of tranquility and joy. He remembered that these classics mentioned that there seemed to be some gods hidden in this human body. Old man. Liuqing paused. I remember, there seem to be so-called facial 7 gods and 6 visceral true gods in this human body. Can these gods also play gods? The few people mentioned by Liuqing are the famous inner gods. This type of god guards the joints of various parts of the human body, opens the door to life, blocks the dead door, regulates qi and generates fluids, solidifies essence and calms the mind. Mainly used as an object of inner vision, contemplation, and recitation, in order to achieve the goal of returning to the gods, eliminating illnesses, and even growing into immortals. For example, the 7 facial gods, the hair god, the Tsanghua character Taiyuan, the brain god, the Jingzhen character Naiwen, the eye gaze, the Mingshan character Yingxian, the nose god, the Yulong character Lingjian, the ear god, the idol character Yutian, the tongue god, the Tongming character Zhengluan, the tooth god, the Yifeng character Luoqian, and one side of the Shenzong Naiwen. As the saying goes, all 9 true Naiwen have rooms, and 1 inch around here. They are all dressed in purple clothes and flying luo clothes, but they think of one part and have endless longevity. It is also said that the true spirit of the 6 organs, the heart spirit, the Danyuan character for guarding spirit, the lung spirit, the Haohua character for emptiness, the liver spirit, the Longyan character for containing brightness, the kidney spirit, the Xianming character for nurturing infants, the spleen spirit, the growth character for soul stopping, the gallbladder spirit, and the Longyao character for imposing brightness. As the saying goes, the essence of the 6 organs and 5 organs, the body essence, the yin and yu leading the smoke, and the turbid and clear are all present in the heart's cloud heavenly classic, which exists day and night and is reborn. You young man can draw inferences from others, Xia Liuqing shook her head slowly. But don't think others are all fools. These gods have been tried by predecessors before, no way. These gods have specific positions corresponding to each other, originating from your body, but the gods that can be used to play gods must originate from your nature, which is your spirit. Then, Liuqing continued to diverge his thinking. Don't be too ambitious, kid, Xia Liuqing interrupted him. These methods are ultimately just some bizarre and obscene techniques. The real root still lies in your life. If you can temper your life to the extreme, even if you don't have any means, you will still be invincible in the world. Remember, from today on, every day at the 3rd watch, I will teach you the methods hand by hand. Xia Liuqing shook her head, put down her teacup, and walked out the door in a leisurely manner, heading west. She looked no different from ordinary old men. Liuqing is actually a young man with many ideas. He stood there muttering for a long time, pondering, as if there were 3 gods that originated from sex. The famous 3-corpse god. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Methods of the 3 Demon Schools. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Methods of the 3 Demon Schools. In the following days, Liuqing lived an extremely fulfilling life. In addition to the necessary coursework, he would also dedicate a few hours to calming down and nourishing his mind every day. Then, at midnight, he would practice new methods with Xia Liuqing. He spent more than 4 months changing the method of his own 10-year cycle. The cycle he transports now is much simpler than before, with faster accumulation of true energy and purer purity. It is truly a true transmission of magical techniques. Xia Liuqing only taught him for 2 months, and after that, he didn't know what news he received. While muttering about Jin Fenger, he hurriedly left. However, Liuqing also has a solid foundation and is adept at learning these techniques. He has not fallen behind in any way and has learned all the techniques. However, as the saying goes, the master leads in and cultivates himself. Afterwards, he had to rely on his understanding of life, whether it was fate or fate. However, when the old man Xia left, he still left a sentence for him, which should be considered a warning. Kid, you've learned all my skills, but it's still a long time ago. If you can listen to the old man's words, don't use your own life to play the god for 3 years. Be patient and use water grinding skills to temper your own life. If you don't listen, it's up to you. All of this depends on your own choice. Liuqing had a deep understanding of a truth since he was young. He listened to people's advice and had enough to eat. This old man Xia showed him great kindness in teaching him, and as a senior, he gave him profound insights. He had no reason not to listen to these words. However, he has an idea that he hasn't given up yet, which is whether the 3 corpse gods can be used as substitutes to play as gods. After all, the 3 corpse gods, like the primordial gods and the conscious gods, originate from nature. If successful, he can master the divine qualities of the 5 gods, not only greatly enhancing the richness of means, but also seemingly expanding more methods. For example, whether these 5 gods can be connected to each other and based on the 5 gods, setting up a formation is not a fantasy. After all, the thunder smoke cannon Gao Ning in the 4 madness of the whole nature can unleash a type of 12 labor emotion based on the 12 orthodox classics. And Liuqing also had some ideas about how the 3 corpse gods were born. He remembered that in the world where Xia Liuqing lived, there was a famous expert who had considerable research on the 3 corpse gods. Sanimo sect. Corpse demon Tu Junfang. Although these 3 evil sects may sound related to magic, they are actually legitimate and prestigious sections. They usually hide in deep mountains, and when practicing, they first use spells to lure out various desires in their bodies. Then, they train these 3 desires and can even be used for combat. Finally, they slay the 3 corpses. The reason why the 3 demons sect is called the 3 demons is to slay the 3 desires in their bodies, namely greed, anger, and ignorance. After slaying the 3 corpses, although we can no longer rely on the 3 corpses to fight, we can gain an unprecedented level of inner peace, and our future will be limitless. Before the 3 demons sect, there was indeed a method to behead the 3 corpses, but later on, Tu Junfang's master heard that he had been damaged during the War of Resistance against Japan, and the method of beheading the 3 corpses was also lost. The cultivation process of the 3 demons sect has an idealized description, but this method also has fatal drawbacks. If the 3 corpses are not slain for a long time, they will constantly erode people's willpower and ultimately devour their hearts. This kind of death method will be extremely painful. In the practice of the 3 demons sect, the 3 corpses refer to upper corpse Pengju, middle corpse Pengzu, and lower corpse Pengjin respectively. These 3 corpses come from our innate 3 desires, greed, anger, and delusion, and are the products of the concretization of desires. The concept of the 3 corpses originated from Guhong's 3 corpse collection during the Eastern Jin dynasty, and Guhong is widely regarded as the founder of the 3 demons sect. And the famous Xiang immortal Zhang Wuduan, who created the 20.4 solar terms valley and was closely related to the emergence of the 8 extraordinary skills, also proposed. From the Gung Jia Shen Ling, it is possible to kill all 3 corpses in the way. To achieve the immortality of the valley god, one must rely on the foundation of the mysterious female. From these scattered language, it can be seen that Liuqing has a serious problem in wanting to play the role of a god through the 3 corpse method, which is that the 3 corpse cannot survive forever, otherwise it will inevitably backfire on himself. But if the 3 corpses were chopped off, even if he had a clear idea, all his hard work would be in vain. Liuqing guessed that this was also one of the reasons why he had never heard of any seniors trying the 3 corpse god. Liuqing has no clue at the moment, but this idea has already taken root in his heart. If left unchecked, it will only grow stronger and even lead to obsession. Liuqing gradually had an idea in his heart, and he decided to first master the method of repairing the 3 corpses. If he knew it was impossible, he would no longer force it and dispel his obsession. If he gets the way by chance, then he can also be considered a pioneer and leave a significant mark in the history of this extraordinary person. However, Tu Junfang and Xia Liuqing are different. This senior corpse demon is in his prime and is not a good match. It is not feasible to forcefully specify him, so we can only start from his needs. Chengzhen was carefree and calculating in his heart, but he was not in a hurry. He still did his homework on his own every day and walked on Sundays. 2 more months later, this small courtyard in the pear orchard welcomed new guests today. Chengzhen still stood on the stage, babbling and singing. His play today is Dingjun Mountain. Head to drum, battle to make rice, 2 drum, tight battle robe, 3-way drum, knife out of sheath. For drum, hand over the troops, moving forward, everyone has rewards, stepping back will inevitably result in a blow, the 3 armies and the Lord. Return to the camp. Before Chengzhen could breathe a sigh of relief, someone pushed the door open and entered without hesitation. After entering, the person's gaze scanned around and he fixed on Chengzhen before walking straight over. The newcomer looks in his early 20s, and his appearance is not only handsome but also quite handsome. However, the expression on his face now looks very unpleasant. Lao Li. What do you mean? Brothers, I can't please you now, can I? Jin rushed onto the stage with a loud voice that didn't match his appearance. Lao Wang's side has said it. If you don't go over today, let me break your leg and push you over with a wheelchair. No. Brother Jin, listen to me. Hey, don't pull my costume. Chengzhen felt a bit overwhelmed for a moment. Okay, can't I go with you? Wait for me to change my costume first, it's against the rules. Your little one follows these rules and regulations all day long, even bothering my grandfather. Jin Bai gave him a glance, but also let him go first. I'm calling you to drink, not to poison you. Why don't you stand us up all day? It's hard to say, the world is as poisonous as a tiger. Chengzhen shook his head. Don't talk about what you have or don't have. You keep playing around all day, Jin said as he came to pull him again. I'll leave my words here. If you don't come with me today, I'll rely on you to stay in the garden. Chengzhen could only accompany him with a smile and pulled Jin to the backstage. He obediently changed his clothes, removed his makeup, and followed Jin into an unknown car, heading straight for a certain KTV. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Circle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Circle Jingcheng, written Elite Gathering KTV. This KTV is also considered unique in these 4 or 9 cities. In terms of reputation, Yundingui KTV is obviously several levels higher than it. However, in terms of grandeur, this KTV is not inferior in these 4 or 9 cities, and of course, its consumption is also on the rise. However, most of the people who are willing to gather here are celebrities, second generation, young masters and ladies, who don't care about the difference of 8,000 yuan. Jin pulled Chengzhen all the way to a room on the 3rd floor. Looking at the reluctance on Chengzhen's face, Jin suddenly seemed to have some wicked taste of forcing good into prostitution. He directly grabbed Chengzhen's shoulder and pulled him inside. Come, everyone, take a look. Who did I bring over? As soon as he entered the door, Jin began to shout at him loudly. Several people had already been sitting in the room, and now they all turned their heads to look over. Oh, Lao Li, can you finally come over today? Hey, Brother Li, I thought you had forgotten all about us brothers. Lao Li, what do you mean lately? Brothers, you've lost face here. Chengzhen smiled apologetically and could only nod his head everywhere. Yes, Brother Wang. Yes, there is, Ah Xian. How could it be, Brother Liao? Don't fuss, Jin gritted his teeth, change all the beers and give this kid some foreign ones. Chengzhen's eyelids jumped fiercely as he looked at several bottles of wine piled up from the left to the right. Amitabha Buddha, blessed is the infinite heavenly sovereign. Amen, with the blessings of all the leaders, I can't just send my child to meet you today. Li Qingzhen's devout prayer. The few present here are all young Li Qingzhen, except for him, the remaining few are almost the second generation in these 49 cities. Chinese people value circle culture. Don't be fooled by the vast 49 cities. Only by entering the circle can you be considered one of your own, and outsiders can't even get in if they squeeze their heads in. The people in this circle are facing difficulties, and everyone is also providing support from all sides, taking care of each other, with the fundamental purpose of safeguarding their class status. As the majority of the general public, this kind of circle culture is obviously a feudal dross, but as people within the circle, that circle culture is naturally the best. Moreover, with the development of the times, this culture has long been deeply rooted and difficult to shake. The fundamental reason is that the vast majority of discourse power is held within these circles. Small things hold big meetings, big things hold small meetings. Throughout history, it has always been like this, late as the cabinet and military machinery department of the Ming and Qing dynasties, and early as the aristocratic circles of the Sui and Tang dynasties. Although the form seems to have changed, in reality, Li Er is still like this. Li Qingzhen is now a member of such a circle. His grandfather, Li Qi, was a famous character in the capital back then. As for the Duke of the country and Lord Bale, he would receive a heavy gift for celebrating his birthday. He would be invited to sing at the mansion for 2 days, which would save him face. His grandfather was also friendly with the second generation back then, and as time passed, the second generation gradually gained control of the discourse, and their family squeezed into the circle. For example, the Jin who just forcefully brought him here, don't listen to this name not being too serious. His ancestors were all legitimate yellow flags, but later the Qing dynasty disappeared, which was not a big blow to them. He changed his surname from Aizenjoro to Jin and became a famous patriotic businessman, still living freely in these 49 cities. And Su Tongxian, the youngest one sitting at the back, was left by the son who was admitted by Su Peixing, the eunuch next to Lord Kangxi. Later, during the westernization movement, he also devoted himself to industry to save the country. His family's industries spread all over the country. Moreover, Liao Gu and Liao Yunzhang are not simple, and they are also the only ones who later integrated into the circle, belonging to the new rich. Their grandfather followed him to conquer the world, and later became a prominent figure in the national court. Some even rumored that some people in their family even controlled the mysterious power of the national court, but who knew they didn't take it seriously. However, among these people, what Li Qingzhen cares most about is actually the fourth person, Wang Yi, the second brother of Wang Yi, the inheritor of the 8 extraordinary skills and the second son of the Zhonghai Wangwei kingdom. Although Wang Weigua is also known only after doing business, claiming to have started from scratch, his background is impressive. At this time, Wang was also the oldest among them, almost reaching the age of discussing marriage. To be honest, compared to this group of people, Li Qingzhen's wealth and poverty may seem a bit boastful, but these people don't care either. Having money is not important, what matters is whether you are recognized by the circle. As long as you enter the circle, there will be people willing to help you. If I help you today, you will support me tomorrow. Human relationships are all mutual things. After 3 rounds of drinking. Lao Li, don't think your brothers are not good at speaking. Jin's face turned red as she began to talk loudly. You just guard your small and dilapidated garden. What's that supposed to be? If you want me to tell you, you can follow your brothers and we'll save you some space. It's too much to say. In a few years, it won't be a problem to set up several industries in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. That's right, brotherly. Su Tongxian looked at Li Qingzhen as his glass was empty and picked up a bottle of foreign wine to fill him with. My grandfather really misses you. He's planning to wait for you to grow up a few more years and find a good partner for you. You don't have any industry in your hands, and he's too embarrassed to speak up in those households. Lao Li, you must not be polite to your brothers. Liao Yunzhang also spoke up to advise him. If you really can't let go of your theater, why don't you just become a celebrity? After all, these 2 years of being a celebrity can't be considered a ninth rate. You're just the right person, good. Liuqing. I have an uncle at the State Administration of Culture, and besides that, taking care of you is definitely more than enough. Lao Liao, that's a great idea, Wang also nodded. Lao Li, don't you just want to promote traditional Chinese opera culture? I've also taken on some of the company's business now, but if that's not possible, I'll also take over the entertainment part. I'll invest money in making movies for you, shooting 10 or 8 films. You don't have to worry about it. What else can you be unwilling to do with nodding? Looking at these few people talking like machine guns, Liuqing really couldn't get in and just smiled helplessly. Brothers, I'm really taking it, but you also know who I am, Liuqing. I don't have much pursuit, money or anything else, just enough to spend. Any more is actually a burden for me, Liuqing sighed. Being a celebrity or something is okay. I'm guarding this pear orchard purely because I don't want what my ancestors have uploaded to be broken. Why bother with all that effort? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Full fidelity, not based on material accumulation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Full fidelity, not based on material accumulation. Liuqing could really feel that these brothers were genuinely concerned about him. But this kindness did not benefit him. Liuqing was first and foremost an outsider, a person who sought the way. To cultivate the way, one must first cultivate the mind. What he most recognized was the thoughts of the warring state sage Yang Zhu. Lose a penny to benefit the world, do not compromise, understand that the world worships one body, do not take. Everyone does not harm a single penny, everyone is against the world, and the world is governed. Lizi, Yang Zhu, the specific meaning can also be understood literally, which generally means that everyone should do their own good, neither doing things that benefit themselves but harm the world, nor doing things that benefit the world but harm themselves, and then the world will naturally become better. This is also the ancestral admonition that the whole sex group of demonic people believe in, but they have already embarked on a crooked path, constantly claiming to maintain the authenticity of their whole nature and not to accumulate material possessions, resulting in a group of indulgent lunatics. It is true and hypocritical to only remember not to pluck a hair, but to remain silent and not take a speck. In fact, the proposition of the sage Yang Zhu was to value oneself, but valuing oneself is not self-interest, but rather, the most valuable thing in one's own body is life. He said that life is short, so one should value oneself, and not let it be damaged, because it is impossible to start from scratch. What should Chongji and Guixing do? Then we need to preserve all nature. What is all nature? It is to conform to the nature. Since we have been born, we must live well. Material things can warm us up, so we can use them. Don't mistreat yourself, don't worry too much. But the most important thing is not to be insatiable, to understand moderation, everything is enough, not to excessively pursue material things, and at the same time, not to do things that harm others for the sake of material things. Otherwise, it will be influenced by external things, causing desire to expand. How can we achieve the state of not accumulating form with things? So what is fidelity? As the name suggests, it is to maintain the authenticity bestowed by nature at the birth of life. In the book Lizi, Yang Zhu, it is said that ancient people knew the temporary arrival of life and the temporary departure of death. Therefore, they moved their hearts and did not go against the natural desires. The entertainment they enjoyed was not something they wanted to do, so they did not seek advice from the name, followed their nature, and did not go against the preferences of all things. After death, their names were not chosen, so they were not subject to punishment. The order of their fame and reputation, and the number of their years and lives, were not measured. The meaning is that ancient people knew that life is temporary and death is temporary, so they should move according to their hearts and not go against natural preferences. They should not deliberately avoid their own happiness, so as not to be tempted by reputation and travel freely without violating the likes and dislikes of all things. Therefore, they will not be punished by criminal law. The size of reputation and the length of life are not what they consider. From this perspective, although Yang Zhu's holistic fidelity encourages people to follow their nature and control their own destiny, it also reminds people not to go against the good of nature, but not against the good of all things. So, true fidelity to all is not bottomless indulgence, nor is it teaching people selfishness. On the contrary, the Yang Zhu school needs to understand restraint and the principle of contentment and happiness. Yang Zhu certainly encourages people to indulge their nature, but in essence, he adds a lock to it. It is actually a very simple thing for people to indulge themselves, but if they want to regain control after indulging, it is as difficult as climbing the sky. But now the whole nature is obviously completely contrary to what Patriarch Yang Zhu said. They are just using the guise of releasing their nature to rationalize their behavior of committing evil, venting, and indulging in pleasure. Over time, they have become slaves to desire. How can they attain enlightenment? That's why Liuqing refused the kindness of his brothers, because wealth that exceeded his needs was a burden for him. It not only had no benefit for his cultivation, but also a drag. So we can only focus on it. A few people looked at each other and spread their hands. I don't know how many times they had persuaded Liuqing, but I know this kid is stubborn and doesn't agree with anything. Come on, stop talking about these useless things, Jin said as the atmosphere stiffened. He naturally changed the topic. Old Wang, what's going on in your family? A few days ago, your father and my father had been complaining for a long time, staring at him blowing his beard and staring at him without saying anything to me. It made my heart itch. Harm, it's not a big deal, Wang Yi shook his head and smacked his lips. It's my third brother, Xiao Yi. I've told you all that when he was a child, he went to Wudan once and came back to talk about it. He likes to study that pile of scriptures, and it wasn't a big deal. But a few days ago, he suddenly made a fuss and said he wanted to become a monk, which made my father very angry. It was only then that I advised him on the side, almost hitting me together. Oh, your younger brother has quite a personality, Liao Yunzhang said as he stuffed a cigarette into his mouth. What happened later? What else can I do? My younger brother and my father can't talk to each other. Later, my father said that he had the ability to let my younger brother get into Tsinghua University. If he can get into it, he won't say anything and won't care what my younger brother does. Wang also shrugged. Anyway, these 2 days my younger brother has been studying in his room since he came home, and sometimes he doesn't even see anyone eating. Oh, Tsinghua, your father is really tough, Su Tongxian exclaimed in surprise. It's not difficult to get into that place, but it's different to get into it. Harm, let's not talk about this anymore. Anyway, with my dad as a backup, he doesn't have to worry about having no way out. Wang also waved his hand. Come on, drink alcohol, don't raise fish. Everyone started pushing cups and changing cups again. Liuqing was sent back to the pear orchard with a strong alcoholic aura, and even wobbled onto the bed, wanting to cultivate in a posture of 5 hearts facing the sky, but he was still unsteady and couldn't sit steadily. I had no choice but to use my true energy to expel some of the alcohol from my blood, which made me feel better. I wipe it. These people really want to drink him to death. Who is a good person who drinks vodka mixed with whiskey? Think again, those thieves just wanted to take him to some underground club to find some fun, and ordered him to come out with them at least once a month to have a good time. I suddenly feel hopeless in life. Liuqing glanced at the sky outside and saw that the spring night was bitter and the short day was high. It's time for cultivation right now. Liuqing took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down from various external desires. Although these worldly desires were obstacles for practitioners, from a different perspective, they were all trials and tribulations. Just like whether a stone is a stumbling block or a stepping stone is determined by people, if one can overcome these environments, it will be of great benefit to their cultivation. The ultimate pursuit of those who seek the Tao in this world is feathering, representing transcendence from the world, which can also be understood as being born. How can one be born without entering the world? It is during the time of cultivation. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Madness of the Heavenly Passage People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The madness of the heavenly passage people. 3 years passed hastily, and the monkey ate 3 full peaches in rotten peach mountain. During these 3 years, Liuqing followed Liuqing's advice and abandoned all his quirky skills. He devoted almost all his time, except for eating, sleeping, and doing homework, to honing his own life. At first, the effect was not significant, but with continuous persistence, Liuqing's whole person underwent a revolutionary change. After 3 years of hard cultivation, the true qi that was previously damaged by Xia Lao's palm has been completely restored, and it is much clearer and more solid than before. The circulation of the sky has become smoother, and the control over qi has risen several steps. This is just an internal change. With Liuqing's continuous refinement of his own life, many of his lifestyles have also been changed. The most significant point is that he has slept less, but he is even more energetic than before, which is called being full of energy and not wanting to sleep. And now he eats more food every day than before, and he can keenly taste the deliciousness in the food. Even a simple dish of tofu mixed with scallions can make him praise it endlessly. This is a manifestation of strong life. With strong vitality, the world naturally becomes beautiful, because the world that humans can experience is just the tip of the iceberg. The more you savor it, the more interesting it becomes. Although he can't perform anything now, Liuqing dares to say that if he really wants to take action, he only needs 1 palm to easily defeat himself 3 years ago. However, this description is not very in line with the thoughts of cultivators. Cultivating one's life is not to compete with others, but rather to live a better life. To use the words of Mr. Liuqing, the world of outsiders is not about fighting and killing, but about being worldly wise. In summary, these 3 years have been crucial for Liuqing, and the life he has forged over these years is the foundation of his standing in this mysterious and alien world. As is well known, the Heavenly Master, also known as Zhang Wei, the only pinnacle of the alien realm, is the existence of the ceiling of this world. What were the factors that propelled him to become the pinnacle? Is it the golden light curse? Is it Lei Fa? Obviously not, although the golden light mantra and thunder technique belong to the superior martial arts of Dragon and Tiger Mountain. Those who have practiced for thousands of years are unknown, and few can reach the level of the old Heavenly Master. Is that the so-called Heavenly Master's degree of prohibition, which has been passed down for thousands of years? It's not true. On the contrary, the Heavenly Master's degree is more like a shackle for Old Master, making him a person who has fought invincible all over the world powerless. You should know that when the Heavenly Master was young, he was known for his big mouth, but when he grew old, he became very secretive. If there was no contribution from the Heavenly Master, Liuqing would really not believe it. What really made Old Master reach the pinnacle was actually his extremely refined nature and destiny. When Old Master was young, his peers were unparalleled, and he slapped and cried for Liuqing, who was extremely famous at that time. At that time, a celestial master on Longhu Mountain, also known as Zhang Wei's master, praised him as crazy. Of course, the Heavenly Master has the capital of madness, but his madness is not in the traditional sense. The Heavenly Master never uses his means to oppress others, nor does he deliberately show off his strength, and he doesn't even seem to have a competitive heart. It seems inappropriate for such a person to call him crazy. So Zhang Wei's madness is manifested in his lack of concern for others. In the eyes of the Heavenly Master, he is the only one who cares about how to cultivate and be a person. He doesn't even consider other things, so he doesn't care about how the outside world ranks him, which is worthless to him. This kind of purity is also one of the reasons for his strength. In the words of the Heavenly Master, he has no opponents at all. Liuqing's understanding of this is that the only opponent of the Heavenly Master is himself, and every step forward is to defeat himself. As the saying goes, only by not competing can the world not compete with it. So his master's evaluation of him is also appropriate in a sense. It can be said that one is not arrogant to look down upon others. His arrogance towards others is not because he looks down on anyone, but because he doesn't need it. So far, the only one who can truly compete with him is his own junior brother Zhang Huai. However, under the guidance of the Heavenly Master himself, Zhang Huai, who has been practicing hard for 3 years, still cannot force the true strength of the Heavenly Master. Even after Zhang Huai comprehended the source and flow of qi, he still felt that he was not a match for his senior brother. This proves one thing, whether it's the 8 extraordinary skills or anything else, ultimately it's just a method of using qi, and it's not an exaggeration to call it a strange skill or an obscene skill. At the upper level, the final competition still falls on one's own sex and destiny. Of course, saying this does not mean that fancy skills are not important. When you truly feel that fancy skills are not important, then you are not far from invincibility in the world. Some people can do this step, but the vast majority of people will never be able to do it in their lifetime. Otherwise, why would those old folks who have already become top 10 still flock to the 8 wonders? However, these are all digressions. Today is a special day, and Liuqing is carefully depicting the makeup on his face. It's time for another day of homework. The song he selected today is the second act, Leaving Home, of the Peking opera, Daming Mansion, No Luck. Li Gu was born unlucky. My fate is poor under the supervision of others. When I first joined the daimyo mansion, unexpectedly, he wandered into a foreign land and became a beggar. That year, there was heavy snow and cold weather, and the north wind was strong. I am plagued by illness and my stomach is empty. I just feel that the mind is heavy when the 3 souls come out of the body. In an instant, I will go to pay homage to the revered face of the king of hell. Thanks to the Lu officials in the Daming prefecture. Save my life and accumulate yin gong. It's also me. Being good at observing colors is a favor, promoted to the position of supervisor and attendant, often walking around the outer hall and inner house. Anren is like me, a close friend with the same heart. Daily sweet words and affectionate greetings. Looking forward to a double harvest of wealth and honor. After singing a song by Liuqing, he was still slowly savoring the meaning inside and pondering whether Li Gu was his early boyfriend. He chose to sing this song today, of course not out of nowhere. This play is called Leaving Home, and Liuqing indeed plans to leave home. His life has been tempered to a certain level, which is enough to allow him to allocate more energy to study bizarre and obscene techniques. His small obsession in his heart is still restless, and it is difficult to say whether it is good or bad. All of this ultimately prompted him to make a choice, to leave home and travel far, to obtain enough chips through some of the prophetic methods he currently possesses, and to exchange the method of cultivating the 3 corpses from Tu Junfang. Liuqing is truly a person who dares to think and act, which is also a characteristic of most cultivators. Moreover, since he has already planned to leave, he has some hidden plans in his mind. Where to go and what path to take will naturally be clear at a glance. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Seeing Words Like a Face. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Seeing Words Like a Face. Actor, in ancient times, was a low-level profession, and the more such a low-level profession, the more emphasis it placed on rules. The most likely scenario is that people who choose lower-tier professions have varying levels of quality, and can only be screened through strict rules to prevent unscrupulous individuals from learning the means. Of course, it is also possible that it is simply to squeeze the lower-class people. Just like today's universities, the worse the universities themselves, the more strict the management is, because the quality of the students who will come to their schools is far inferior. It is probably not enough to expect them to pursue academic pursuits, and strict rules can only be established to prevent them from causing more trouble. Among these lower-tier professions, the rules of actors are also well known, such as not having one's own emotions on stage, not using negative moves against peers, not disrespectful to costumes, not saying anything that does not match the character after dressing up, not disrespectful to seniors, etc. can be listed in dozens. For example, if Liuqing wants to go on a trip and the actor wants to go on a study trip, he naturally needs the consent of the theater first. However, now he is the only one left in this pear orchard, and this rule is also in vain. In the old days, most actors who had the ability and ambition to go on long trips would not stay in their original theaters after returning. Over time, long trips became synonymous with separation, and before long trips, they would have to go door to door to inform the old customers who often came to support them. But he also saved this rule. Since his grandfather passed away, those old customers have gradually left, and this theater has slowly become desolate and dilapidated, with no one coming. Occasionally, some people come knocking on his door, as well as speculators in the real estate industry, who try their best to persuade him to sell this small garden, talking wildly. Liuqing naturally doesn't need to tell them his whereabouts, isn't it, because he's finding himself unhappy. Then there's only one last thing left. This is not the rules of the pear orchard, but what my grandfather told him before he passed away. If one day my grandfather is gone and he plans to leave the garden for a long trip, he must first go to the bottom of the 5-bucket cabinet in the south room and find a pine box, open it, read the contents inside, and then set off for a long trip. In the last few years of my grandfather's life, I also reminded him to never open it in advance, telling him that he must have made up his mind to travel far in order to open it. Liuqing was also obedient, although he was still a bit curious, he still suppressed his curiosity to the bottom of his heart, until today. After finishing his homework, he obediently changed into his costume, took off his makeup, and calmly arrived at the southern room. He found the pine box at the bottom of the cabinet. The box is decorated with hollowed-out carvings, and a thick layer of dust has already accumulated. With a gentle blow, it can be scattered everywhere. There are no locks or buckles on it, as if eager to be opened by someone. Unexpectedly, it has been dusty here for many years. Liuqing slowly opened the pine box, which was not filled with any gold or silver, nor was it an industrial certificate or antique object. Instead, it was an old and yellowed notebook and a letter written with a good grandson's personal message. Liuqing scraped off the paint mark on the side with a scraper and opened the already written letter. Chengzhen, my grandson, seeing words like a face, the Lord has been gone for a long time, and his sorrow is also severe. He is also sorrowful to others, and it will be difficult to meet him again. Sigh and mourn. Having seen the letter, it is expected that son will go on a long journey in the martial arts world, with a treacherous heart. He is well behaved and upright, afraid of being resented by thieves. It is hard to say that he will not encounter anyone. He has long been worried, but unable to speak. He will eventually hide it in his heart, take action, and plan ahead. There is now a small book, not a miraculous method, not a miraculous prescription, but a book of human relationships. It can be said that there are detailed records of warmth and coldness, and there is no need to estimate or guess. Be a good grandson and follow the fate of the past, bow your head and worship your blessings. There are 16 old acquaintances, 3 good friends, and 1 close friend uploaded, all of which are listed in the warm and cold book. The obedient Sun Yuan parade is about to arrive in the local area. When searching for the above people first, use the mask left in the master's room as a tribute, take care of it with personal affection, and the master can also be relieved. He was always kind and generous, and rarely had any grudges with others, except for 2 people. Baioi, Liuqing, and Shentu, Wang Ai. The former had already suffered a disaster and headed straight to the Yan Wang mansion, while the latter had committed many evil deeds without any harm. The old dog is delicate and may have flaws. He is obedient and straightforward, and it is difficult to escape calculation. If he encounters the latter, he must not mention his family background. He should only hide and shrink his head, and wait for 100 years before raising his tomb and raising his bones to show off his family spirit. The fate has been determined, and there is still a story to follow. There is a great thief named Zhang Huai who invited his master to perform at Longhu Mountain for a day in the 32nd year of the Republic of China. He owed De Yang 18 coins, but later disappeared and was despised by his master. If the obedient grandson encounters his descendants in his actions, and if he can do something, he will serve him with his fists and feet, dispelling the evil spirit in his heart. If he cannot do something, he will give up. Remember to explain the cause and effect, and do not form any grudges with him to avoid major disasters. I have a feeling in my writing, but it secretly hurts me. Therefore, I have left this article to express my wishes. May the country and its mountains and rivers be safe, and I hope that my good grandson is doing well. Ye couldn't help but burst into tears. Li's Hongju, the last stroke. Liuqing read the letter several times in just a few hundred words, and his grandfather's voice, face, and smile seemed to be right beside him, inevitably feeling a bit sad. Gently wiping the corner of his eye, Liuqing breathed a sigh of relief and reached out to take the personal account, also known as the Cold and Warm Book. According to Grandpa's letter, this booklet records 16 old acquaintances, 3 close friends, and a close friend of life and death, and clearly tells him that this good grandson has all the address information on it. When you arrive at which grandpa's territory, go visit first. Continuing the warmth of family affection can also give Liuqing more care from his seniors and help him avoid detours. There are also 2 enemies of my grandfather mentioned above. One of them has already passed away, and after hearing my grandfather's tone, he probably gave up. It's not a big concern, but rather the latter, Shintu Wang Ai. The current head of the Wang family, one of the 4 major families, is also the grandfather of the infamous giant baby. Wang Bing. Faced with this, Grandpa naturally hoped that Liuqing would stay as far away as possible and not touch this person's bad luck. As the head of one of the 4 major families that have been passed down for at least hundreds or even thousands of years, when it comes to Wang Ai, who only has disgusting skills and no practical means, Liuqing was the first to not believe it. Whoever believes in this kind of thing is a fool. Since Liuqing knew it well, he naturally wouldn't entrust it to others. When the time comes, he will naturally avoid it. The so-called revenge of a gentleman is not too late for 10 years, so be a great man. Grandpa also emphasized one point in the letter. Zhang Huai, one of the culprits of the Jia Shen Rebellion and the high achievements of the Dragon and Tiger Mountains, owed Grandpa a performance fee of 18 yuan, and I don't know how much it was. Anyway, Grandpa was holding back a bit of anger. Liuqing clicked twice. It seemed that he and Zhang Chulan were destined to have some connection, and there was a high probability that they would not be very happy. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Family Safety, National Health, and Tomb Not Alone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Family Safety, National Health, and Tomb Not Alone. Liuqing slowly opened the warm and cold book, always feeling a strange feeling lingering in his heart, probably an alternative sense of peace of mind. I thought that with the passing of my grandfather, he would no longer be helpless in this strange world. In the future, I would have to be cautious in order to gain enlightenment. I didn't expect my grandfather to leave him with such a large network of relationships. Some people say that these relationships were feudal scum for the court, but for those with relationships, they are also a source of peace of mind. Not to mention the reliability of human relationships, they are a crucial component of life for people. Especially in terms of quantity, outsiders themselves are at an absolute disadvantage, and each outsider can clearly realize how incompatible they are with the surrounding environment when interacting with ordinary people. This sense of loneliness, which is elusive, is also the fundamental reason why the vast majority of outsiders who cannot maintain their nature begin to indulge without reason. And it is precisely because of this sense of loneliness that outsiders often attach more importance to their own relatives and friends, and even have crazy people like LVCI who are almost paranoid about blood and family relationships. Although his personality has external stimuli, nothing can be achieved overnight, and there is a high probability that there are early signs. In this way, the interpersonal relationship between strangers is naturally more stable than that of ordinary people. Liuqing flipped through the personal account. Just as he flipped through 2 pages, he saw an unexpected yet reasonable person on the personal account. That's right, he is. Oh, Henry, it's Xia Liuqing. This universal celebrity, the ferocious Xia Liuqing, appeared prominently among the 3 good friends of my grandfather's personal account. Liuqing just realized now, how could there be any fitting coincidence? I still admire him. Damn it, that's all for fun. Xia Liuqing clearly came to find him by following the plot, either at the request of her grandfather or because she was not very confident with her old friend's grandson. Liuqing smiled bitterly twice. Indeed, there is no such coincidence in this world. He can still encounter it. However, this also sounded the alarm for him. Xia Liuqing was once a good friend of his grandfather, so he naturally had no ill intentions towards him. But in the future, when he walks outside, no matter what, he still needs to leave a heart. Fortunately, he still wanted to use the information difference of the prophet to carry out some plans, but before he could start taking action, he was already beaten by the information difference and died before he could succeed. Indeed, we cannot underestimate the people of the world. These lists contain detailed records of the addresses, names, sex, and even personal preferences of the people my grandfather befriended, demonstrating his dedication. However, several of them have already placed a small red cross in parentheses below, with a note indicating that they are deceased. Counting in detail, 10 of my grandfather's 16 old friends have already passed away, and one of my 3 friends has also passed away early. Time does not spare people. When Grandpa heard the news of his old friend's death, he could only sigh, shake his head, and silently scratch their names. How can there be a sense of instant vision in the life and death book? Grandpa also mentioned in his notebook that the vast majority of these old acquaintances are his peers, but there are also some elders who have received favors. This is kindness, and you should remember that there are also 1 or 2 younger generations who have been promoted by him. This is love, and you can also bear it with peace of mind. He also reminded him that if he encounters a younger friend who is close to him, and if the other person encounters difficulties, you should take care of them, but act within your capacity and not force yourself to do so, in order to avoid risking your own life. Liuqing emphasized the deceased gentlemen. Although they all said that actors were ruthless and prostitutes were unjust, these people were accustomed to the warmth and coldness of human relationships, saw through the separation and reunion, and had to make their hearts hard, because this was their way of survival. However, Liuqing can be considered a traditional playwright from his family. Their family has strict upbringing and does not have strict requirements for abilities. They adhere to the principle that children and grandchildren have their own blessings, and first of all, they need to cultivate their character. If their character is not up to standard, they cannot teach the family the means. Good family rules and tutoring really play a very important role in a person's education. After all, children are nothing and can be easily smeared. 10 of my grandfather's 16 old acquaintances have passed away, and there are 2 elders who have shown gratitude. One is the great master of the Tang clan, who laughed at Yen Luo. Tang Jiren. During the War of Resistance, he protected him thoroughly, while the other is the Holy Hand of Jishatang. Mr. Niu. During the War of Resistance, he saved his life once. There is also a late national master, Mr. Wang Zizhong, who was a disciple of Mr. Niu and also an old friend of the master. If encountering the descendants of these 3, if the other party encounters difficulties, they should do their best to repay them. If there are no difficulties, they should also make friends with the other party's descendants and help each other. Oh, this fate is profound. Liuqing especially glanced at the name of Prince Zhong, which impressed him. A few years ago, the news of the death of a national doctor spread throughout the country, and most importantly, this old man Wang was also the soul of the old man who was almost swallowed by Wang He in the original work. Remembering Wang Ai, who had a grudge against his grandfather, Liuqing truly understood that he had a big relationship with the Wang family. In the future, there will be no need to worry about the morality of the martial arts world. If there are any negative or harmful moves, just use them. While trying to protect yourself as much as possible, we will never stop fighting against them. In addition to the elders mentioned above, there are also two fellow disciples, Wang Laowu, a playboy from Shaanxi, and Huang Fang, a famous red flower fairy. The former died during the War of Resistance against Japan without any descendants, while the latter seems to be involved in the 36 Thieves. If there are descendants, they can help without endangering their own lives, but they cannot make friends. The priority is to protect themselves. There are also several people from different educational backgrounds. Hunan, Danfan buys water. Xueqi, Zhelong Mountain in Hunan Province, earthly immortals. Ancient journey, XC esoteric sect. Shua Hu monk. Returned master, for 9 cities, scattered people. Yanzi Li San, Hong Kong natural gate. Su Gaowen, in his grandfather's account, the above-mentioned individuals also had their peers playing with children. Wang Laowu and his grandfather Li Hongjiu. When they were young, they participated in the Battle of Taierswang during the anti-Japanese war. In the same team, they encountered more than 10 Japanese aliens, including yin and yang masters, ninjas, and swordsmen. All members of their team, without exception, died in battle. Grandfather, who had unintentionally been cared for by the Tang sect, survived and was seriously injured. He was saved by the Jishitang. Among these individuals mentioned above, except for Xueqi from Hunan, there seems to be a son who inherited his methods, and the rest are all extinct and buried to serve the country without anyone knowing. So his grandfather gave him a death order in the end. For every additional name on it, Liuqing would add an extra stick of incense to his Qingming grandfather's grave every year, counting a few, and his grandfather would pass it on to those masters below, urging them not to cut off the incense and also to receive the worship of this peaceful and prosperous era. Let them also experience this. Some people remember that the Taiping Danshin is safe, the country is healthy, and the tomb is not alone. Looking back at it after 9 deaths, one should not regret it, because it teaches the sun and moon to change into a new sky. Liuqing nodded silently, indicating that this cause and effect had occurred. Counting the time, Qingming had just passed, and these masters had to wait for another year. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Rights and Obligations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Rights and Obligations. Liuqing accepted the cause and effect of these 10 deceased predecessors, and naturally felt at ease to accept the affection of the remaining friends of his grandfather. This is not about being sentimental or anything like that, but rights and obligations are always relative. If you don't take on obligations and enjoy rights, it may seem like a good thing, but the laws of the world are essentially one and the other. If you occupy more in this area, you need to find something else to make up for it. Taking the initiative to assume obligations, this right brings peace of mind and will not compromise one's own fortune. That fortune is dependent on misfortune, and misfortune is also dependent on this principle. Liuqing looked at the list of names and was somewhat amazed. It seemed that the previous plans didn't need to be so complicated anymore. This is the benefit of human relationships, and many irregular things can also be handled according to human relationships. There is a shortcut to take. Liuqing didn't bother either. He packed his clothes carefully, picked up a suitcase, got up, and went out. He took a taxi and headed straight to the family courtyard in the 49th city. "Brother Liao, where is this place?" Liuqing waved his hand and shouted from a distance. Liao Yunzhang's expression shook as he casually extinguished the cigarette in his hand and was about to throw it onto the ground. His hand froze in mid-air again, paused, and then ran to the nearby trash can in a proper manner, throwing it in. "Here we go, Lao Li," Liao Yunzhang awkwardly smiled, as if trying to conceal his embarrassed actions just now. "I set off a long time ago, but the cars in this capital are too congested. Liuqing shook his head. Brother Liao, have you brought what I want? Look at your impatience, can I forget about this? Liao Yunzhang chuckled and waved his hand. The two people behind him carried a large box and placed it in front of him, well-trained and well-prepared. Liuqing didn't show any courtesy to his buddies either. He immediately opened the box, and an inexplicable smell came from it. Inside, there were nothing else, but neatly arranged special cigarettes, special wine, and special tea, bottles and sizes. Putting this thing outside is a hard nut to crack among rare goods, but for this group of young masters in the capital, it's not too rare. But to get so much at once, it really requires considerable means. But for Liao Yunzhang, this matter is not a big deal. For him, it's rare for this poor brother to have a conversation with him. How could there be any difficult thing to do in the world? Well, it's also important that brother Liao has good skills. Liuqing gave a thumbs up. If there's more, I won't say anything. When I come back this time, I'll be the host and treat the brothers to a drink. I have to look forward to it. I didn't expect to be able to drink the wine you invited in my lifetime. Liao Yunzhang lit another cigarette from somewhere. After drinking this wine, I have to boast to them for 10 years. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. Okay, Lao Li, you should also make a trip here. If there's more, I won't say anything. I wish you a smooth journey. Alright, let's go, brother Liao. Hey, take your time. Liuqing silently remembered his brother's kindness in his heart, without the need for words. Over the past 3 years, as they grew older, the time they could drink together gradually decreased, and sometimes they couldn't even see each other for several months. The oldest Wang Yi got married a few days ago, and he even went to have a wedding wine. It was only when he heard that his sister-in-law's belly had already moved that he realized he was almost in the uncle's generation. At the wedding banquet, I heard Wang Yi talk about his younger brother getting admitted to Tsinghua University, but he decided to become a monk and go to Wudang Mountain, which angered his father. Liuqing just laughed it off. Although it was interesting, it had nothing to do with him. The Jin and Su families seem to be preparing for a marriage alliance, and perhaps next time they meet again, Jin and Su Tongxian will have to discuss each other separately. He could imagine how wonderful the expressions on those two faces would be. It seems that it's because I'm preparing to leave home, but these usually insignificant memories are flooding out at this moment, making me feel strangely sad. Liuqing silently checked in the box of cigarettes, alcohol, and tea, taking a deep breath and slowly moving on. I clenched the ticket out of my pocket. Capital Airport. Magic City Longhua Airport, Magic City, Longhua Airport. This Longhua Airport can be considered as one of the earliest civilian airports in the Qing dynasty, located on the west side of the Huangpu River. Although it is slightly old, you can still vaguely see the grandeur of the past. Liuqing got off the plane and picked up the checked items. If he had checked them in earlier than he did, he first searched for a warehouse to store some of the items, and the rest were packed in a sophisticated but simple bag. Without saying a word, I headed straight to the postal company in the Magic City. This is the first step that Liuqing planned for himself. First, he will establish an official path. Although Nowhere Tong repeatedly denies that he is not a state-owned enterprise, everyone in the world knows it well. He is an outsider and will definitely operate within the country in the future, inevitably having to deal with the company. And in the old friendship left by my grandfather, there was just one person from the company, the person in charge of the East China region. Dou Lu. For Li Hongju, Dou Lu belonged to the younger generation. When his grandfather met Dou Lu, he had not yet become the person in charge. It was also because Liuqing's grandfather had some friendship with their family that he helped, and now he has come in handy. The East China region covers a considerable area among the 6 major regions, including 7 provinces and 1 city, now Shanghai, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Fujian, Jiangxi, Shandong, and Taiwan, which can be considered as encompassing the relatively prosperous coastal areas of the Republic of China. But what is most talked about by Uncle Do is the temporary worker under his command. Great compassion. Xiao Zio. What Li Qingzhen is most interested in about this Baojing master, who has achieved perfect unity between his demonic and Buddhist nature, is what kind of appearance would Xiao Zizi, who represents anger, take if he were to reveal the three corpses. A representative example is the corpse demon Tu Junfang, whose upper body presents the true nature of a bamboo leaf green snake, his middle body presents the true nature of a wasp, and his lower body presents the true nature of a woman. As Su Zhonglin wrote in The Romance of the Gods, the mouth of a green snake and the tail of a wasp are not the most poisonous to the heart. As a high disciple of the three-demon sect, Tu Junfang has shown such a malicious nature. It is unknown how this Xiao donor, who has almost accumulated evil thoughts to the extreme, can evolve such a shocking nature that can intimidate people's hearts. When I think of this, it really makes me look forward to it. However, this is not the point now. Li Qing is really a person who understands the importance and urgency of things. After tidying up his appearance, Li Qing has really stepped into the door of any express delivery company with great strides. Offline signing, the documents have been sent out, and it will change around Monday. The old man can invest a lot of money to collect some coins. Thank you for your support, /. End of this chapter.